Tonight, the province is set to unveil plans on how schools will reopen in September.
I think collectively parents in this province are holding their breath.
Parents and 2 million kids will learn what the new school year will look like tomorrow. Plus,
what do you think? Do you think you're ready to go play in the park over there then?
Toronto and Peel get the green light to enter Stage 3. And a memorial continues to grow for a 2-year-old boy who died after falling from a North York apartment. We'll have the latest in the investigation into what happened. Good evening, I'm Marivel Tarouk. The uncertainty swirling around back to school could be lifted tomorrow. CBC News has learned that's when the province will unveil its return to school plan. And as Katerina Georgieva reports, parents are filled with anticipation and anxiety.
I think collectively parents in this province are holding their breath. We have knots in our stomach. Is this government going to do the right thing and prioritize our kids and fund education tomorrow?
A long-awaited announcement, the fate of students in the fall. Will it be back to school 5 days a week or a partial return? And what are the dollar signs that'll be attached to the plan? Questions these parents have as they join teachers for a rally outside a number of MPP offices today. They're demanding a safe return to school in September with proper safety measures in place that's fully funded, and others are calling for the same.
We need PPE, we need hand hygiene, we need good ventilation in classrooms. We need all of those things in order to move forward.
Sick Kids has also updated its guidelines for a safe return to school. Recommendations include staggering lunch times, smaller class sizes, and masks for older students, but not for younger ones.
I think we need to see first and foremost money. There is no way that our kids are going to be safe returning to any kind of near normal. We need massive amounts of money put into education. Anything short of that is quite frankly dangerous.
I am really hoping, if nothing else, the pandemic has shown us that with political will, governments of all levels can find previously unimaginable amounts of money and allocate it.
There's also frustration that it's taken so long for a plan to be put together.
Really, this should have been happening in March. I know the pandemic hit in March, but when this happened, they should have all been getting together collaboratively on Zoom or whatever form of communication they could to sit down and collaborate on how to make this happen and what their long-term plan was.
Alsop says the pandemic has been tough on her and her 2 kids.
I'm very anxious about tomorrow, and I'll be waiting. And if I hear good news, then I'll celebrate. If not, I'll be crying.
Ontario's school boards still have until August 4th to submit their reopening plans to the province for approval. Premier Ford has said he'd like to see kids back in school, but stresses the importance of getting the plans right. Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Toronto.
Universities are also mapping out their back-to-school strategies. The University of Toronto is facing backlash over its plan to have some courses taught in person. 6 faculty and staff unions at the U of T have launched a petition against the school's reopening strategy. Angelina King has more.
I think a lot of the students are concerned. PhD student and member of the U of T's Graduate Students Union, June Lee, has been on campus over the summer working in a lab. She says while there is safety protocol, it hasn't been streamlined across all labs and there's little oversight. She's afraid that will continue into the fall.
Their ideas were good, but the execution wasn't great. I think the way that they can have a really good plan is if they listen to the students and listen to the staff and listen to the TAs.
More than 2,600 people have signed an online petition against in-person classes. During the fall semester, about 90% of undergraduate courses will have an online option, but about 1/3 will also be taught in person, giving students the choice, but not necessarily the teachers. While the school says no instructor will be forced to teach in person if they feel unsafe, the Faculty Association president says some don't feel they have a choice. She says they're worried about the 3 C's: close contact, closed spaces, and crowds.
It's just not safe enough. Why? Too many unanswered questions, too much possibility that the safety measures put in place aren't enough, and we don't want to test those safety measures prematurely.
U of T professor and epidemiologist David Fissman says he's worried about dorms, poor ventilation, and potential transmission when teachers and students speak loudly in class.
We're not sealed off. If we're going to amplify spread on campus, we're potentially not only damaging our own community, but the wider Toronto community.
The school says campus won't be busy by any means. Most faculty and staff will keep doing a lot of their work from home, and when there are in-person classes, they will be small with a lot of safety measures in place.
We're not only going to closely follow the city and provincial health guidelines for safety and health, but we're also going to exceed them.
She says measures will include physical distancing markers in classrooms, new heating and ventilation filters, and mandated masks. Some faculties have decided to strictly teach online come fall, while others have not. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
An update now to a disturbing story we brought you last night about a noose found at a Toronto construction site. The Carpenters Union says they've removed one of their members in response. This is at least the 5th noose found at a construction site in the last few months across the city, this time at Fairbank Station at Dufferin and Eglinton on the Eglinton LRT. In a statement tonight, the Carpenters Union says in response to a racist and hateful act at the job site, they requested and received the unequivocal resignation from an individual who had recently joined the union. It continues, behavior that makes anyone feel unsafe will not be tolerated, and accountability rests on everyone in the industry to create safe and respectful workspaces. Toronto and Peel region are moving into stage 3. The move comes as new COVID-19 cases in the province dropped below 100 for the first time in months. 76 new cases of COVID-19 were reported today. That's the fewest number of new cases since March 23rd. Well, as of 12:01 Friday morning, a lot more services will be allowed to reopen. And while many are welcoming today's announcement, it comes with a number of restrictions for business owners. Lorenda Redekop has the reaction.
This downtown pub and restaurant plans to open its doors for customers inside right at 12:01 a.m. on Friday.
So we've allowed 2 people to sit together.
And there's no standing around at the bar. That rule was passed today as part of the temporary city bylaw.
What used to have about 15 to 18 seats, we now only have 8.
The new cleaning protocols are on full display. The City of Toronto instituted a 10-person max at tables.
So I'm seeing the 6 chairs here. Will that change then once it opens on Friday?
So our intention is to have 2 of our chairs with signs on them showing them they're not allowed to be sat at.
The extra space will be for servers to drop off food and have distance.
If greed was on our side, we would sit 6 people here. But we feel like if we're going to make sure that someone comes and has an experience with us, we want them to feel comfortable.
To him, it's a relief that reopening is coming just as major sports are back on. And he says he and his staff are willing to put the brakes on celebrations if needed.
People being hungry for sports, you add alcohol into that equation, and there's the propensity to want to shout and yell and be, supportive of your team.
Customers say they'd trust going inside for a drink.
It's convenient. I think there's a plethora of sports being played this weekend. And so I'm looking forward to getting back to that.
I'm happy that they're able to stay open through this time. It's been a hard time for everyone.
The mayor warned with the reopening, it's more important than ever to follow the rules to avoid a spike in cases.
And we most certainly do not want to go backwards. So please, open your doors carefully as you open. I'm saying this to businesses and to people as we reopen the city and have the larger gatherings that are allowed and so forth. Let's do it carefully for the sake of people, for the sake of customers, and for the sake of employees.
Kids are looking forward to another change as of Friday. Splashing around is fun, but in 2 days, playgrounds will reopen too. The city warning people it won't be regularly sanitizing the equipment.
We've got our disinfectant, we'll have our masks, we'll have our water bottle to wash our hands in soap and water then, so, What do you think? Do you think you're ready to go play in the park over there then? Yeah, and the bigger one like right down over there?
Yeah.
Another change the city approved today, you have to wear a mask in the indoor common areas of condos and apartment buildings. That goes into effect as of next Wednesday. And there's also a change in terms of the size of social gatherings that are allowed. You can have up to 50 people inside, up to 100 outside. But if it's less than 2 meters, it still can only be people who are in your 10-person social circle. Lorenda Radikop, CBC News, Toronto.
The province also announcing details today on the independent commission that will look into how and why COVID-19 devastated Ontario's long-term care system.
They will conduct as many interviews as necessary. They will require records to be produced, and they will summon as many people as they need to until we get down to the bottom of this.
The commission will be led by Frank Morocco, the current Associate Chief Justice with the Ontario Superior Court of Justice. Morocco served as lead counsel for the Ontario government in the Walkerton tainted water inquiry. Nearly 1,900 residents and 8 staff members have died of COVID-19 in Ontario's long-term care facilities since the outbreak began. The commission is expected to deliver a report into what happened next spring. But the report doesn't have to make recommendations regarding civil or criminal responsibility. A lawyer representing families involved in a class action lawsuit against long-term care homes says his clients want a public inquiry.
There are over 1,800 fatalities here. This is a major event that needs close scrutiny.
The Ontario Long-Term Care Association saying today it is encouraged the commission will look at what it calls a broad range of long-standing and systemic challenges in the industry. Police are investigating the death of a 2-year-old boy tonight who it appears fell from a window on the 14th floor of his apartment building. Greg Ross shows us the growing memorial for the child and a warning. There are some disturbing details in this story.
I saw this baby and blood was coming out his mouth, his nose.
Petra Ann Roberts was one of the first to discover the body of the 2-year-old boy. She says he was laying motionless on the grass directly below the window of his 14th floor apartment.
The baby do not have any clothes on, just a Pampers.
Sophie Regis arrived just moments later with her sister, who is a nurse. Regis says her sister immediately started to administer CPR.
He looked like he didn't have no signs of life.
At this point, it's not clear how the toddler could have fallen out of the window.
And here,
This woman, who also lives there, showed us safety windows that were installed in the building recently. Her son, whose bedroom is directly above the area where the 2-year-old fell, saw the neighbors attempting to save the boy's life.
I just opened my curtain and I saw why people was crying.
Residents here have been stopping by all day to leave flowers, candles, and stuffed animals at this memorial for the boy. Many say they're concerned because they're not sure if there was anyone home with the 2-year-old at the time of the fall.
When I came around and I saw the baby, it was like, oh my God, where is the mom?
They say the mother didn't get there until after the ambulance, and she appeared to be coming from the direction of the grocery store.
when I came down, she's coming from there, you know, like with the grocery bag.
Police say they are still investigating, and at this point, no charges have been laid. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The union representing Toronto firefighters says they're seeing a jump in calls compared to this time last year. The culprit, they say, the pandemic.
These are all preventable fires, and that's the key here, is to make sure that we're doing everything we can to prevent the emergency from taking place.
It comes down to this: more people at home means more careless cooks and smokers flicking cigarette butts from condo balconies. The Firefighters Association president says calls are up more than 13% compared to this time last year, and there are also more fire fatalities. 68 people in Ontario have died as a result of fires this year. That's a 66% increase compared to the same time last year. The advice from firefighters: pay attention to your cooking and carefully dispose of cigarettes. Well, food insecurity is also on the rise amid the pandemic, leading to a major spike in new food bank clients. That's according to a report by the Daily Bread Food Bank.
We already knew that the numbers of individuals who were coming to food banks increased from about 15,000 to over 20,000 per week. What we didn't know was the severity of hunger that is affecting every single individual who was coming to a food bank. 1 in 4 children used to go hungry. That number is now down to 1 in 3.
And while demand has skyrocketed, food banks have been struggling to keep up with reduced capacity. Daily Bread says a third of its locations were forced to close their doors during a widespread lockdown in the early days of the outbreak. There's also been a massive reduction in food bank donations. After the break, why did a man struggling with addiction go through 4 different counselors in 20 days?
He said, "Mom, you're not going to believe it. I'm on my 4th counselor, and I'm so frustrated. I'm getting so tired of repeating my same story over."
His mom says the counselors kept quitting because they weren't getting paid. That story coming up next. Former clients, their families and staff are sounding the alarm about an addiction treatment center in the GTA. They say the owner has exploited vulnerable people by taking huge amounts of money, then not delivering the care they were promised, adding the reason he gets away with it is that private addiction treatment isn't regulated in Ontario. Nicole Ireland brings us this exclusive story.
I'm fearing for his life every minute of the day, to get a phone call or a knock on my door to say that he's no longer here.
For years, Debbie Beaton has been desperately trying to get her son Drew the help he needs for a drug addiction that keeps landing him in jail and on the streets. She thought she'd finally found it when she paid more than $12,000 to the Addiction Recovery Network, where Drew was supposed to receive 6 weeks of residential treatment, including help with anger management, therapy, and other services. But after 3 weeks at the Brampton facility, he felt like he'd had no help at all.
And he said, "Mom, you're not going to believe it. I'm on my 4th counselor, and I'm so frustrated. I'm getting so tired of repeating my same story over."
Beaton says the counselors left because they weren't being paid. The facility ended up kicking Drew out, accusing him of disruptive behavior. Social worker Rebecca DeGara worked briefly there as an addiction counselor. She says clients like Drew were agitated because they weren't receiving the treatment they'd been promised.
At the end of the day, my heart was broken to see clients that were in really dire need of true help and treatment not getting it.
Because of Addiction Recovery Network, we've been clean and sober for 4 months.
Online testimonials like this convinced Maya Day to fly from Edmonton to get help for her alcohol addiction. When she arrived at the Brampton facility, it was nothing like what she'd seen online. There were very few other clients on site, and they were left with just a security guard overnight.
We were promised, that there was a nurse on site at all times, which, when you're going to this type of facility, you do want that kind of medical support in case you need it.
Day says she checked herself out after the first day. She wasn't surprised when CBC News told her some of the people in the testimonials she saw are actors, not clients.
Hi everybody, it's John here.
John Haynes owns Addiction Recovery Network. He insists his company provides the best treatment possible. Although he admits he owes former employees thousands of dollars, he blames them.
I don't profess to be a nice boss if they're not doing their job. I am, and I'm wrong when I don't pay them.
Haynes says he's working out a payment plan with the Labor Board. Former clients and employees told CBC News they want the province to regulate private addiction treatment centres like Haynes, but the Ontario Ministry of Health says it has no plans to do that. Nicole Ireland, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's check on the forecast with meteorologist Colette Kennedy. Colette, it actually didn't feel so hot to me today. Maybe I'm just used to the 30-degree temps now.
Thanks, Marivelle. Well, we did it again today. Temperature up to 30 degrees. And this month is going to go down, it looks like, as the hottest July we have on record. So are we done with the 30-degree days? I know we're almost out of the month of July, so we don't have much time left, but I think we are done. But count them up, 17 days where Toronto, Pearson, we were up to at least 30 degrees or warmer, and in many cases warmer. From here on out, temperatures, well, at least for the next several days as we go into the holiday weekend and into the beginning of August, closer to seasonal or even at times a little bit below, so more comfortable. And the holiday weekend forecast, we're going to take a look at that here too and just give you a chance to plan because we do have some wet conditions coming in there. Look at the readings for the daytime highs right across southern and eastern Ontario. We did have some areas where we had some active weather even into eastern Ontario, southwestern Ontario too, with severe thunderstorm warning at one point for Chatham, Kent. So we had some thunderstorm activity for sure. Now we're seeing, of course, as we go towards the overnight hours, things really quieting down, drying out. So it gives everyone a chance to kind of take a breather here and get some sleep through the overnight hours. And we do have a little bit of cloud cover, especially through southwestern Ontario. And then as we go into Thursday, just a few spots where we'll see a few isolated showers at risk again to the southwest of the GTA. And then I put about a 30% chance to the north of the GTA too. And you can see well into northeastern and eastern Ontario, greater chance of seeing some scattered scattered showers coming back in. Drier conditions as we go into Friday and Saturday, and lots of sunshine as well. It's as we get towards Sunday, Monday, that's when the next system is going to move in and things are going to be changing up for us. So we will have some wet conditions there. And it's looking more like Sunday is going to be kind of a wet day, perhaps off and on throughout the day, as opposed to just later in the day is how it was looking earlier when I was looking at those earlier in the week. This is for Windsor, okay? Overnight tonight, 17, partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow afternoon, 28, little humidity, very little humidity, so pretty comfortable, 32 for you there. And winds fairly light and kind of a mix of sun and cloud into the afternoon hours. For Toronto, it'll be 18 with clear skies tonight. Tomorrow afternoon, 28, not getting up there to that 30 degrees. That's why I'm saying we're going to kind of keep it at 17 days where we were there. Friday, 28, a little warmer into Saturday, looking pretty good. And then as we head towards that civic holiday, you can see some slightly cooler temperatures coming in here. And although it looks more like showers for Sunday, I do have some thunderstorms in the forecast, or at least a risk of that as we go into Monday. I think you'll still manage somehow to make the best of it.
We'll try. Thanks, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
Coming up, a pair of musicians serenade their neighbors with a driveway concert in the beach. We'll take you there after the break. Throughout the pandemic, we've shown you how people have come together at a safe distance through music. From opera singers belting it out from balconies to violinists serenading their neighbors, music has become a symbol of solidarity. Tonight, it was a driveway concert in the beach on Winneva Avenue, and that's where we'll leave you tonight. Enjoy, and I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night, everyone.
I took my love and I took it down.